Believe it or not, 3.8 is not a retcon, and I have predicted that 2.2 was a fake ending since a year and a half ago. Yes, that's right, everything has been planned from the start, including the fact that we took fLY's picture at the 38-second mark in the White Knight trailer. Also, the English version of White Knight directly quoted fLY, while the Chinese version of White Knight has always hinted at the samsara and a return to Penacony. Well, most things, except for Sparkle's part. My girl got done in badly by Constance, but other than Sparkle, with the reveal of 3.8, the theme of addiction and religions as the opium of the people are even clearer now. After all, as Elegy has told us since 2.3, she is here in Penacony for the traces of the finality, for Terminus the shapeless prince against the current. She has been waiting for the arrival of Terminus in the abandoned train station of Dreamflux all along, in a reference to the play Waiting for Godot. Godot, as in God, who is supposed to be turning up, but his arrival is always delayed with the promise that he will come tomorrow. In the play, the two main characters wait for the god of tomorrow to arrive, forever stuck in a purgatory of life. And true to the plot of Godot, it can be said that after 2.2, fLY and the Penacony arc itself was stuck in a purgatory, lost in the Penrose staircase of dreams, waiting for the arrival of Terminus to change the meaning of the ending. But what is the full story here, beyond the veil of dreams? Going back to the start, much like Amphoreus, Honkai Star Rail is actually a universe in a nutshell, encased in two different types of samsara. The first type is the parallelism between the eras, as you can see with the Beyond the Sky choir plot being repeated endlessly from the choir twins, to Sunday and Robin, to Phanon and Reaver, to Cyrene and Demiurge, to us and our other selves. In the first type, only the roles are preserved in the play, with different actors for different iterations of the script. An example of this in Amphoreus is the generational samsara from Phase 1 to the Calypso generation in Phase 4 before Phanon started the recurrence in the first loop, which incidentally is also where the first Cyrene traveled back to in 3.7. In contrast, the second type of the samsara is the eternal recurrence, where it's literally the same cast playing the same script over and over again in hope of a different ending, exactly like the eternal recurrence of Amphoreus. For more details on the two different types of samsara, you can check out this Phanon video for more details. However, this doesn't mean that the eternal recurrence of the universe is exactly the same as that of Amphoreus. In practice, the eternal recurrence of the universe under the Remembrance and the Finality is actually closer to that of Re-0. In a normal Groundhog Day loop scenario, people usually assume that you have to restart at the very beginning of the journey. However, because of the power of the Remembrance, there are multiple mechanisms for the Finality to rewind back to multiple save points in time, as if there are multiple 80s Alicia in the universe. The first mechanism we were introduced to is the light cones, which are based on Minkowski's light cone from actual math. The light cones record memories to create histories, while the memories not worth keeping are discarded. Because of this effect, the light cones act as anchor points for the arrow of time when it moves forward, much like their real-life counterpart, and much like the concept of quantum time lock from the Fate series. An example of this at work was back in 2.2, when Black Swan used the empty light cone to review the histories of what we remember, and to point us away out of Aina's dream. Well, away, but not exactly the correct way, as we have learned this patch. This is because the Honkai Star Rail world building also utilized Feynman's multiple histories and uncertainty principle, but I will address this in more detail later on. In addition to the garden's light cone, the second mechanism of the Remembrance is explained in 3.7. According to Herta, the Remembrance works through lignification. Soft sprigs form a hardened shell and fuse with a trunk. For the universe, this process is what we call memory. With the power of the Remembrance, the past becomes memories, and events of the present can become fruits, even without roots. Translated into English, it means that the cause and effect can be reversed, and the cause can be in the future going back to the past, forming a stable time loop. fLY called this the texture of memories in the light cone, while Cyrene calls this the blank page, a miniature garden, which requires the sacrifice of a seed to maintain its casualty loop. In other words, the The blank pages created by the seeds act as a save point for Terminus time loop. And as long as we have gone through the checkpoint, we can circle back to the checkpoints with our memories later instead of restarting from the very beginning again. A soft reset through predetermined checkpoints, if you will. And this mechanism was exactly what took effect when we transitioned from Amphoreus to Penacony. In a previous cycle, instead of choosing to stay behind in Amphoreus to stabilize the casualty there, Cyrene chose option B in the Eximeth, setting off into a journey with the Astral Express. Because she did not stabilize Amphoreus, the result of the experiment circled back to Irontomb, which posed a major threat to the universe. As a result, the Cyrene of option B chose to ascend as fLY, the fourth finality of that cycle, freezing everything, including that cycle's Irontomb, in the Big Chill, ending the universe in that loop, and pressing the reset button in Re-Zero style. At the end of that journey, Cyrene chose to shatter herself to become the memories of our current cycle, and we were sent back in time to an unknown checkpoint without our memories. While we don't have any information as to which specific checkpoint she sent us back to, what is more certain is that by the time of 2.0, when we met Acheron again at the start of the Penacony arc, we still have some faint ideas of what happened at the end of the previous recurrence. In various flashbacks we had from 2.0 to 2.2, we repeatedly saw the finale of Penacony before it happened in that timeline. And at the very start, when we first met Acheron, we cracked a brick joke about being Terminus, and then we woke up crying for a bad ending that we don't remember, one where we lost someone important to us. Well, actually, it's multiple people from fLY to Cyrene to the entirety of the universe. This was explained in 3.8 as the Stellaron's power leaking the contents of the dreams into our mind, but it's pretty easy to question why we even dream of those future images in the first place. Of course, this is because the future already happened, and we are in the past of Terminus. Memories are the prelude of dreams, as they sang in the Chinese version of the White Knight song, which was released back in 2.0. Ergo, the images in the dreams are memories of the future, carried back by the eternal recurrence. In short, 2.0 was not our first rodeo on Penacony, and we likely landed there right after Cyrene of option B kicked us back in time to Timeline C. And for the record, it seems like we aren't the only ones with memories of the eternal recurrence in the Penacony cast. The funny thing is that because Acheron never remembers anything without her blade, she always uses her emotions and gut feelings to identify people around her. Which is why she thought we felt familiar to her in 2.0 and why she mistook our room for hers early on. In 3.8, we are given further confirmation that she did have the feeling of having been on Penacony before way back then. As fLY, when we ran into Acheron during the break-in, she can be heard muttering about the room number this time. So there were previous times that she didn't remember. Back then, a lot of fans assumed that she found us familiar because of our similarities to a Kiana or Kevin version in her life, but actually now that the universal eternal recurrence is confirmed, and Acheron is now canonically confirmed to be the reset point for the Penacony stage, that familiarity can now be safely chalked to the eternal recurrence itself. And for the record, when she mentioned the Kevin XP to Welt back in 2.1, she actually sounded like she hated him for dooming her world, which prompted Welt to get angry and defend his world's version of Kevin. Of course, that entire dialogue in 2.1 was to foreshadow a very important plot point for the actual Kevin and Kiana parallels in Penacony.
如果迷失，在你看来，羊为什么要飞上天空？
Well, not just Robin and Sunday. Actually, since the very start, many characters in Penacony have the theme of birds. The entire bird family, Robin, Sunday, and Gopher, are all different flavors of the same Charmony Dove story. Aventurine and Ratio, who are a peacock and an owl respectively, represent the birds on the IPC's side. And of course, we can't neglect Miss Black Swan, who is very obviously a swan in reference to the movie Black Swan, and Constance, who is tied with the raven as a reference to Allan Poe. With the same connection to Allan Poe, fLY of the Stellaron Hunters is also affiliated with the Raven through her theme, Nevermore. And actually, it was this common reference to the Raven between fLY and Constance that let me correctly predict that Constance was on the Elio train back in 3.5. Although my gut feeling that she wasn't really a Stellaron Hunter was spot on too. But more than just the current plot in Penacony history, Professor Owl and his students, the origami birds, are actually human souls stuck in the dreamscape after they died in the dream. In fact, their quest is one of the key clues that the resolution of Sunday's fight in 2.2 was actually a fake dream. After you complete the origami bird quest in 2.0, a bird would show up in the real hotel, but they're actually dead spirits and can't be seen outside of the dream. So like Misha in the reality hotel, their presence in 2.0 was an early sign that the dream was being leaked into reality by the Stellaron, and that the endings we saw in 2.2 are fake all along. As I have analyzed back in 2.2, and as 3.8 has explained, there are 3 layers to the dream. Aina's dream is the lowest layer crafted by Sunday. Above that is the primordial dreamscape, which includes Dream Flux, the bug nightmare where the Oak Manor sank into, and the sweet dreams of the family, which had long merged with reality by the time of 2.0 due to the Stellaron that was given to Gopher before 2.0 began. Well, Hoyo kinda cheated in 3.8 by grouping the dreams together, but at least I got the sentiment right back in 2.2, haha. So what does it mean for a bird to fly? Well, it depends on the bird. For some, it is the ability to slumber, the experience of spiritual death before they are ready for the end, lost in the moment of perfect happiness. For some, it is the ability to wake up, the experience of life, no matter the cost, seeking for a resolution of their obsession. And for some, it is the big sleep, the final resting place of dead souls in the ancient dream of oblivion.
Then they say, "Oh, you who have reached the end, enter into the paradise that envelops all. Join this great choir and feast. Listen to the beating of billions upon billions of hearts, holding you in their embrace."
Look upon the courtesan's extravagance, the mariner's intemperance. Listen to the infant in the mirror, the waves as they enter the dream, the tipping of the balance, the shapeless prince. And finally, measure the world against yourself, and take all such things to heart. This is the path you should walk, they say. Machiavelli, depart once more. Machiavelli.
In other words, Razalina's legacy is the 3 pathways of memoria she left behind in the dreamscape. In Dreamjoy film event, we learned that the Mirror Princess fell into a trap of the something unto death meme and shattered into many pieces, but her many pieces are still around to help Penacony. Well, we actually still don't have any confirmation as to what happened to her pieces, other than the reveal in the ghost ship story that she is stuck in a time loop repeatedly killing herself, and that by 2.3, her loop has ended and she is turned into foam. Does that sound like Cyrene? Yes, it does. If the ghost ship story about her killing herself eternally is true, then it means that the something unto death is also a piece of Razalina, because the Mirror Princess died to a trap by the meme. So imagine Cyrene and Demiurge in the eternal recurrence, with each Cyrene being absorbed by the Demiurge every recurrence. I didn't have any idea about the pure children at the time. Back in 2.0 and 2.1, I suspected that Razalina has had multiple pieces, one of which was Black Swan. But now with further context from 3.8 and how much they emphasized again on Black Swans as of yet unrevealed ulterior motive, I think it's safe to say that Razalina and Black Swan are probably different pieces of fLY. For the full reasoning, you can check out my Terminus video posted back in 3.7. But anyway, 3.8 has provided further context for this Razalina plot. With the technology from her homeland, she has given her life to the memory zone, giving Penacony its unique signature. This is the 3 paths for dream seekers on Penacony. Those who are lost will end up in the sweet dream, correlating to the path of harmony. Those who are obsessive with something will end up in the special dream bubbles, correlating to the path of propagation. Those who yearned for freedom will end up at dream flux, correlating to the path of Enigmata. And the starting point of all is the spiritual death of Nihility. In other words, Penacony is actually in a Memoria black hole, as you can clearly see in the dream flux map. At the Memoria black hole, Razalina has thrown herself in it to create the three paths for the dream seekers, becoming the true founder of Penacony, shattering herself into pieces. This is the origin of the ghost ship story that can be found on the Radiant Feldspar. In the story, a female scientist exists only as soul fragments in the memory zone. In each reiteration of the cycle, she will always try to get back onto the immortal ship, only to kill her previous self, only for her to be killed by the next version of herself again. As a Memoria researcher who got lost in the Memoria black hole, Razalina is highly likely to be the same female scientist who fell off her ship, and this event was the sacrifice that Aventurine was talking about, and also the shattering of the Mirror Princess in Mikhail's Dreamjoy account. Of course, if this hypothesis is true, then the true form of the killer who killed the Mirror Princess, something into death, is actually a soul fragment of Razalina all along. But regardless, by 2.3, we received a message that Razalina had finally turned into foams. We don't really know why she turned into foam, and that's a missing plot point that Hoyo will probably go back later as the unresolved central mystery of Penacony. But from what we have known right now, Aventurine is completely correct in stating that she is the true founder of Penacony, for it is quite clear that her fate is reflected in the fate of many different characters we have met in Penacony. The first most obvious story is that of Mikhail and Dr. Blues, who represents the path of the Enigmata. Much like Razalina, by 2.2, Mikhail has let himself fade away inside the dream. In 3.8, Gopher gave us further information about Mikhail's fate if fLY chose to circle back to the past. After making her way through a dark space without any light, she would end up at Mikhail's tombstone, which Gopher considered to be a final sigh of sorrow and futility. And if you look closely at the background, that's the Penrose staircase again, which has been tied to the Enigmata through the jellyfish on the staircase curio since 1.0. This aligns with Dr. Blue's attestation that Mikhail's body was reconstructed by Gallagher after his original body could not withstand the test of time, as was Dr. Blue's body as an origami bird in the dreamscape after his real body as Orla had died. This detail also aligns with Dreamjoy's record that Mikhail used the Scammer Cup to tamper with the history of Penacony, much like how the history fictionologist likes to do the same for the universe's history. In other words, the Penrose staircase is the sign of the Enigmata. The freedom and false bodies offered by Dreamflux are also built on the lies of the Enigmata through the Scammer Cup, and if they ever give up on the future, if they ever choose to stay back in the past, the dream of the Enigmata would devour their bodies, leading them to the oblivion of true death. This is what happened to Mikhail in 2.2, what could happen to Dr. Blue if we choose to let him go and reunite with his friends, and what Sunday truly wished for all along when he declared that there should be no gods governing over humans, including himself. The end of the journey for the certain trailblazers is the oblivion. For certain birds, the reason to fly is to stop flying, to finally fall into the embrace of the big sleep. Falling was originally just another name for flying. And on this 8th day, he granted himself departure. However, I would like to note that the death of oblivion offered by the Enigmata is not the same as the spiritual death of the Nihility. As I have predicted in 3.0 and recently confirmed in 3.8, the Nihility is used by Hoyo as spiritual death for a new beginning. It is the starting point after every reset, as a hidden form of the origin. This is why Acheron remembers details of the previous cycles and keeps mistaking them for one another. Why Acheron is the shorekeeper leading Aventurine to the obsession memory bubble, away from the oblivion in Dreamflux, and why Acheron marked the start of our journey on Penacony. Basically, if the three paths are the three choices fLY could take as a dreamer, then the Nihility is the resting step right in the middle of the screen. Among the three choices, the Enigmata is one possible path that we can take in Penacony, the dream of freedom offered by the lies of Mythos. And, much like the California gold rush that inspired Dreamflux, it's a scam. In fact, any scene with the Penrose staircase is under suspicion of being either a dream or a scam. In fact, Any scene with the Penrose staircase is under suspicion of being either a dream or a scam, including the scene in Amphoreus when Phanon ascended. From our point of view, Phanon only got his neck cut, and then Nanook appeared. But from Phanon's point of view, he was dismembered by Zephyro and fell back into the past. In 3.8, Zephyro is later confirmed to have been there for real, and that was not a simulation of Zephyro at all. In other words, the reason for that part censorship of memories is likely because of Zephyro, who has the same Nihility attribute as Acheron. We don't know for sure who erased that part for us between Cyrene, Evernight, or Black Swan, but the reason for doing so remains the same. We cannot be tainted by the memories of Nihility, else we would fall into the destruction against Elio's script. That said, there are also the suspicious letters behind the news scene telling us that that news scene is literally not real. So there's that, and the chance of that noose actually being Herda or Evernight puppeting the corpse of Noose is non-zero. Iron Tomb did annihilate the universe before Cyrene pressed the reset button, and its entire purpose is to kill Noose. In Inception, the Penrose staircase is an impossible staircase that can only exist in dreams, and it is used as a corridor for the protagonists to travel between dream levels. Before Penacony was released, in addition to the jellyfish curio released in 1.0, the developers point-blank stated twice that Penacony is based on the Inception, and the staircase minigame is also based on the idea of the Penrose staircase as the corridors of dreams from the Inceptions. That Penrose staircase also appeared again whenever Lygus talks about the samsara as his cave, and also directly appeared in Evernight's trailer.
Sink into the sea of oblivion and become my guest. The Evernight draws near. Time for some sweet dreams. Until we meet again, everyone.
In 3.6, Evernight even hinted to us again that what we experienced in 2.2 is not the truth by literally making us wake up again in Penacony in her sweet dreams. So of course, as I have pointed out way back in 2.2, when Acheron took our hands, a Penrose staircase appeared, signaling to us that everything from this scene onward is nothing but a fake sweet dream to make us forget about the reason why we cried at the start of Penacony. The Riddlers have a saying: every time that an enigma manifests in the universe, it will leave behind a staircase in the void. The dissolved realities will then drip down the steps, condensing into a modeled thing bearing semblance to a jellyfish. There was once a nameless who claimed to have made contact with a jellyfish on the staircase. In madness, he proclaimed that the jellyfish will activate the cognition regions within the gray matter of one's brain, a vast place beyond the fathoming of mortal minds. So yes, 3.8 is all planned out from the start, and is not a retcon. This is an application of show, not tell, to demonstrate the power of the Remembrance and the Enigmata. If the Remembrance is the power to preserve memories and enact the universal eternal recurrence through those saved checkpoints, then the Enigmata is its other facet of the same mirror, created to delete the memories of past recurrence. As a memory is deleted, it will no longer be repeated in the next eternal recurrence, leading to true death in the oblivion. Until we remembered why we cried, until we found our memories and promise again, we had not been told the true ending of Penacony, which has finally been shown to us in 3.8. Funny story, back in 2.0, there was this one-time interaction in the Dream Hotel that led into a red ancient dream of something. Back then, I thought that this void leads to the Nihility, but actually, with the reveal in 3.6 that the Enigmata's black tides are the oblivion, true death of the self through deletion of memories, Mikhail and Dr. Blue being devoured by their own dreamscape built out of the Enigmata suddenly makes sense now. And well, with the release of the Oak Manor map, it's pretty easy to see that that red ancient dream actually leads back to this exact space in the new map, and the ancient dream in the 2.0 text is about that of Razalina, when her dream shattered into 3 separate paths. Of course, oblivion is not the final answer, and there exists 2 other paths on Penacony. This has been hinted at long ago back in 2.0 and 2.2. As I have mentioned before, during Dr. Blue Quest, you can choose to let Dr. Blue be devoured by his own dream, much like Mikhail's case in the same patch, or you can wake Dr. Blue up and let him have a happy ending in a dream, much like fLY's case in 3.8. Similarly, back in 2.0, we have Kokona, who is modeled after Mal, the dead wife of the protagonist from the inception. As a receptionist in the lost dream of the 12 hours, Kokona has to have her memories periodically suppressed by soul-glad usage because she has severe depression. She once wanted to become a singer, but her parents forced her to abandon her dream to become a store clerk. Later on, she fell in love with someone, and her boyfriend promised to take her away from her boring job. And yes, this is a direct parallel to our promise with fLY. However, it is implied that her boyfriend died and could not fulfill her dream of being taken away. In her depression, the family prescribed her soul-glad to suppress all her bad memories and depression away, which did not treat the root cause of the problem at all, just hiding it away under the influence of the addictive substance called the sweet dream. During her quest The Vision of a Rose in 2.0, we have to help her face her memories and stop the soul-glad abuse. In a key scene of the quest, much like Mal in the Inception and Sunday in the final boss fight, Kokona wanted to jump off a building to seek an end to her depressive state. Incidentally, this building is also a parallel to the date we had with fLY in 2.0. We are given two choices, either to let Kokona jump and disappear from the dream, or to take her hands and not leave her alone. If you choose to save her, she will be seen singing in the square inside the sweet dream, denoting that she has chosen to live and faced her depression head-on, allowing herself to pursue her dream on the side while still keeping her store clerk job. It is not a full recovery because depression doesn't work that way, but it is a start, a compromise between waking up and dreaming, a bouquet of hope for a new finality, even if there cannot be an ending between her and her dead loved one. It is Kokona's dream of becoming a singer. It is Aventurine's conflict between his desire for freedom in death and his obsession with revenge in life. It is fLY's promise with us, and it is also Sunday's promise with Robin. If certain birds choose to stop flying and fall into the big sleep, then other birds still choose to live on and fly on their journey, even if the future is predetermined. We need a sweet dream to continue our journey so that we would not lose ourselves to the destruction, and at the end of our journey, we would circle back to the past to create a sweet dream for ourselves. In other words, the two remaining paths lead to the same ending, even if the meanings are different. According to Kuralim back in 1.3, there will be a god who rises and scatters seeds throughout the stars in the future. Back then, I thought this was about Nanook because the other characters in the game were so sure of that. But it turned out that Lygus was actually refuting us in this scene, and Kuralim was actually talking about Xipe. Ergo, in the future, Xipe would rise and scatter the Stellaron, one of which would become us, who would eventually become the new Finality, who would turn back time so that Xipe would rise again to defeat Tazi, creating a close time loop. Ergo, fundamentally, the Propagation's obsession with life and the Harmony's sweet dreams both lead back to the same ending determined by the Trailblaze as the new Finality.
Relax. This is just a dreamscape. Life is a winding labyrinth. With memories, our soul companions. People believe they're facing the present and the future, yet fail to realize we're all moving toward the past. Memories are different. There's more than one destiny to choose from.
However, it's perfectly clear that Razalina did not originally plan for the obsession section to follow the propagation. 3.8 revealed to us that Gopher did it for the Order. To better understand how the propagation functions in Penacony and its relationship with the Order and the Trailblaze, we need to revisit the true plot of Penacony in chronological order. In the backstory of Penacony, the place was originally a prison for the IPC, supposedly to contain a Memoria overflow disaster. However, the IPC's true purpose was to mine up the Memoria there for an unknown purpose, likely related to the memory bubble tech that they got from collaborating with the Garden. Among the prisoners were Souza, a chef who eventually invented Soulglad for the prisoners, and Hanunu, supposedly a werewolf who once caused trouble in the Montour system. From the context clues of the Penacony set, we can also assume that Hanunu was actually a destruction follower, because he was the one who later melted the chains of the IPC along with the three nameless, Mikhail, Tiernan, and Razalina. On Razalina's side, she was a princess from a mirror kingdom, running away from her home and specializing in memoria tech, correlating to March in the current trio. Tiernan was a follower of the Hunt and later became a Galaxy Ranger after leaving Penacony, correlating to Danhum in our current trio. On his part, Mikhail later became a follower of the Enigmata, but mostly he correlates to us as the Trailblazer. By the time the three nameless arrived, Souza had already invented Soulglad to soothe away the pain of the prisoners, becoming the inspiration for a later trend called Syrupism, a lifestyle in which people drink away their pain and lose themselves in the dream. Religion is the opium of the people and all. Albeit, Sousa's version of the Soulglad contained the original dream leaf, which had become extinct by the current time frame. Of course, this is an obvious reference to the original Coca-Cola, which was once served in syrup form and once actually contained Coke. With the spread of Soulglad among the prisoners, they became entirely unproductive by the IPC standard, which led to the confiscation of Soulglad and the execution of Souza by the IPC guards. This execution was witnessed directly by Mikhail. As a result of the Soulglad withdrawal symptoms and the desire for freedom, the prisoners revolted under the leadership of Hanunu and the three nameless. Well, only Hanunu and the three nameless desired freedom. It's heavily implied that most of the prisoners revolted because they wanted to regain access to Soulglad, as that was the first thing they aimed for the moment the guards were taken down. With the allure of Soulglad, Hanunu convinced everyone to revolt against the IPC, and they started a protracted war against the IPC force under Boss Stone, who is obviously one of the 10 stone hearts, and whose parallels in the modern day are Aventurine and Jade. During the war, the prisoners had gathered themselves into 7 factions, which include Black Plum, Bloodhound under Hanunu, Iris, Alfalfa, and Nightingale, in addition to the 3 nameless. At this point in time, Mikhail had grown close to Hanunu, apparently sleeping in the same room as him. You know where this is going, and yes, Hanu was a parallel to fLY, with pretty much the same ending until we changed the meaning of it in 3.8. Under the leadership of Boss Stone, the IPC bribed the Alfalfa, who lured the Black Plum into an ambush and killed them. In the same event, Hanunu was also killed, presumably kicked out of the dream, or actually died, depending on when the Stellaron was actually used. We don't have a clear timeline on that one, mostly because Mikhail lies as easily as he breathes. Mikhail, being the Enigmata follower that he is, claimed in the Dreamjoy film that Hanunu totally survived and was the one who executed Lakika, also known as Shopkeeper Leaf and the father of Odi. But in Hanu's adventure, it was revealed that Hanunu actually died to the same ambush as the Black Plum, and Mikhail was the one who executed Lakika in his grief. As a result of this, Odi took over the Alfalfa clan from his father. Although, by the look of it, Odi is going to parallel his father in a future plot with the IPC against Robin soon. Around the same time, Razalina sacrificed herself to create the 3 paths in the dreamscape, shattering into many pieces, but he could still communicate with Razalina through her fragments. It was these soul fragments that became the specters of the female scientist in the Ghost Ship story, and presumably the true target of Black Swan's as yet unclear ulterior motive. It certainly is true that Black Swan's old ways shouldn't be too different from that of Constance, considering they used to be cellmates. But regardless, the war continued on until, well, the current timeline. The IPC has never given up on their ambition for Penacony. However, there's a very important issue here that Mikhail has always danced around in his retelling of the events, the whereabouts of the Stellaron. At an unknown point in time, back when Hanu was just starting his War of Independence, a shooting star, also known as a Stellaron, fell into Penacony, but Mikhail claimed that he hid it away from everyone and talked them out of using the Stellaron. Like the Trailblazers meeting with Acheron in the dream, it was around this time Hanuna started to have dreams of the previous eternal recurrence, dreaming of the Oak clan's later participation and of a clock being buried underground. From the context clue of the same Dreamjoy film, that clock that Hanuna dreamt of was the Stellaron, and it should be in the possession of Mikhail. We don't really know what happens afterwards, but in the dream bubble Dr. Edward gave us in the event, back when Hinunu was alive, someone blew up the Soulglad stash, officially starting the dream on Penacony, which would make Hinunu's death a fake one, and he was probably just barred from re-entering the dream. However, the Dreamjoy film retelling of Mikhail told us a different version. Mikhail claimed that he never used the Stellaron while Hanu was alive, and that the Stellaron mysteriously went missing from his room after his friends had all died. He further claimed that the townsfolk used the Stellaron to fall into a coma, and then he contradicted himself again by stating that Gopher, whom he invited to Penacony after Hinunu's death, swallowed the Stellaron and used its power to make everyone fall asleep, starting the dream of Penacony. Considering that Mikhail is a follower of Enigmata and he has a history of lying to hide his grief when Hanu died, I personally put more trust in Hanu's point of view, in which an explosion happened and everyone already fell into a dream the moment someone blew up the Soulglad stash. Well, and judging from Gopher's reaction in 3.8, he didn't even know what the Stellaron truly was before the family punished him, and that was way later down the timeline. Ergo, the theme of religion as the opium for the people applies for Mikhail as well. If you think about it, he is actually the prime target to have used the Stellaron to create a dream for himself, one where Hanu did not actually die, much like how we used the power of the Finality to give fLY her bouquet, changing the meaning of the ending. Albeit, because Mikhail did not have direct access to the Finality power, he probably just used the Stellaron and the Enigmata instead to create an alternative history, one where people seek freedom rather than the bottom of the bottles called oblivion. Though of course, the truth will come out sooner than later, and by the time of 2.2, Mikhail has finally accepted that the source of his grief would never come back to him, and he chose to die in the oblivion of the Enigmata alone, as nod to Mal's fate in the Inception, a parallel to Sunday's choice when he took up the mantle of the Chord Master to protect his sister. A foreshadowing for fLY's choice to die alone in the real ending of Penacony back in 2.2, when the Fools ring twice. And there were two fake endings, not one. Speaking of the family, after Gopher arrived and established the Oak Clan, Mikhail used the Scammer Cup to craft a lie and attract people to Penacony, much like the California Gold Rush. As a result, a Glamoth Knight, fLY's friend, arrived at Penacony, unknowingly bringing the swarm with her, which explained all the bug decorations in Penacony and why the Fate collab event also centered around the bugs. That was actually foreshadowing for Gopher's bug plot. The swarm's arrival eventually led to the death of Tiernan in the dream, and he was permanently barred from entrance by the family afterwards. From Acheron's narrative, Tiernan later joined the Galaxy Ranger and succumbed to the Nihility, hanging around the river of Nihility until Acheron brought his relics back to Penacony and gave him a final bouquet to his grave. By this time, Gopher had already started his research into Xipe's 3 faces, believing that Tazi should be one of the faces. Well, he was wrong, but he didn't know that at the time. To facilitate his research, he prevented fLY's friend from leaving and killed her, using her corpse for his study of the propagation. The research actually failed, and he realized that Tazi was not one of Xipe's faces. He found out that it was actually the Order who was one of Xipe's faces, and that it was Aina who sacrificed themselves to give humans a chance against the swarm. Presumably, it was around this time that Gopher actually started to have second thoughts about the Harmony and the Order. What we do know is that by the time he adopted Sunday and Robin, he had already fully switched camp to the Order, for he adopted them fully knowing that they are the twins of Order, the very discordant notes of Order that the family resents. This plot was mentioned exactly twice in 2.2 and 2.3, but it was drastically expanded in 3.8. Born as the descendants of the Beyond the Sky Choir, as children, Sunday and Robin witnessed 2 Stellarons falling into their homeland. They did not know that it was a product of the Harmony at the time, and initially thought that it was a sign of their wish coming true. We don't know what really happened, but it looks like there was a war and then their mother died. Knowing their status as the twins of Order and the parallels of the Beyond Sky Choir twins, Gopher adopted them precisely to groom them against the Harmony. In Gopher's original plan, which was mentioned in 2.2 and repeated again in 3.8, Robin was supposed to be the Chord Master responsible for summoning Dominicus, melting people's brains into a collective consciousness soup of orange juice and resurrecting Aina. It's just that Sunday stepped in and switched places with Robin at the last minute to protect her, paralleling the Beyond the Sky Choir twins plotline, something that was actually highlighted by An Hung back in 2.2. Because of Robin's original role as the Chord Master, Robin was given the first divine law by Gopher, and the heavenly fire raining from above was supposed to be the Aina version of Dominicus. Conveniently enough, this divine law given to Robin is also used to explain an unresolved issue with Robin's voice. Back in 2.2, I pointed out that it made absolutely no sense for Robin to have trouble with her voice because of the Order remnants in Penacony. Firstly, she herself is that Order remnant all along as a twin of Order, and secondly, Sunday is exactly like her and fared well enough. In 3.8, the original explanation was correctly pointed out as a logic error by Robin herself, and the real answer is finally revealed. Originally, Robin could only use the harmony power in the first place because Gopher was tuning for her through the first law. Now that Gopher no longer had any strength to do so after the night burning scene event, Robin naturally could no longer use the harmony power that she never used on her own before, like a Charmony dove that had never flew on its own and had always been secretly shielded by Gopher and her brother. It was not until Robin underwent a spiritual death that she actually started to fly on her own, so to speak, and use the harmony power with her own will. Personally, I find this a great character development for Robin, and it made Robin singing for Xipe in the Sunday battle much more meaningful, as that would truly be the first time she had sung for the harmony, and the first time the Charmony dove actually took flight. On another note, this detail about the divine laws and Gopher's state finally explained to us what really happened to Gopher, why he claimed what he did was divine retribution against the harmony, and why he accused the family of using the Stellaron to tang the dreamscape first. Back in 2.2, a play called Night Burning Scene was released. Together with the red tape set of world quests released from 2.0 to 2.3 and Toscani's account in 2.2, these lore books and quests hinted to us long ago the true story of Penacony before Gopher's body was destroyed. I did connect the three together at the time, but I assumed wrongly that Robin was the culprit instead of the main branch of the family. Except for the identity of the culprit, so close enough. The main gist was pretty much what I guessed back then aside from the culprit. Originally, Gopher took in a bunch of people who appeared as cowboys in Mikhail's Dreamjoy film and the adventurers that the Trailblazer and Firefly pretended to be in the Scorched Sand film quest back in 2.2. They were lured into Penacony to exploit the unknown wasteland outside of the Sweet Dreams, often suffering under harsh conditions, attacks from rogue mimetic entities, and death, all for the mining of Memoria, the resource that made Penacony appealing to the IPC in the first place. However, the cowboys and the people of the Sweet Dreams soon came into conflict, which triggered the cowboys' revolt against the family rule. Many years later, after the Sweet Dreams have finished being built, another set of rebels taken in by Gopher turned against the family, paralleling the cowboys of the Scorched Sand era. In the night burning scene, the rebels eventually burnt the Oak Manor and the body of Gopher alongside it. As a result of this, the Oak Manor and the Dream Hotel half sunk into the sea of memory, triggering another chain of disaster. As the resentment of the dead Gopher and the rebels built up, following the rules of Penacony, these emotions did not stay in one place, but infected the Dream troops in the half-sunken Dream Hotel, driving them mad. According to the red tape hidden quests, the troops started to attack all the guests in the Dream Hotel, eating any guests they could get their hands on, leaving some pretty horrendous claw marks in the bar area and the mysterious red tapes in the quest. However, from the view of a letter from an apostate who used to be friends with Gopher, the rebels did it for the sake of freedom, much like how the prisoners chose to do the same back then against the shackles of the IPC, and much like how the cowboys only yearned for freedom. At the end of the fiasco, a clan sent a message to the main branch, and there came the second disaster. As with all convicts, the main family's tuning stripped them of their flesh, reducing them to longing without desire, substance without will, and faith without conviction. Their purest thoughts were partitioned and dismembered, becoming verses of song, passages of scripture, and lines of law. Then, they are all to be absorbed into the Great One's magnificent, primordial divine law, woven into its chanted verse and embraced by infinite overtones. During my pilgrimage, I witnessed a visitation from the Pan-Acoustic Theater. The stars shifted, 1,000 sounds rang out as one, and 1,000,000 thoughts danced in ecstasy to the aria of Constantina the singer. Yet, even as puppets, those convicts refused to spend their lives heralding the consonant chord. With their last vestiges of will, they staged a final riot. The edicts named freedom all shifted forward by a single beat. It was merely a single beat, but the combined will of millions of convicts, held captive and catechized by the hymn for years beyond count, introduced a fleeting, discordant note into the symphony. And I must admit, that transient dissonance moved me more profoundly than the chorus of the stars ever has. So, I did get the tang by the harmony part right. I just thought it would be Elenev instead of Constantina because of Toscani's account of tang by Elenev, but generally, a bunch of people's brains got melted into orange juice as a result of the revolt. That primordial divine law who summoned Constantina is, of course, Gopher himself after losing his body. At the end of the letter, the writer, who is possibly Mikhail, left Gopher, but when it rains, it pours. As Constantina melted everyone's brain juice, a third disaster struck Penacony. Nanook appeared themselves and destroyed the Eternal Centurion, the manifestation of Xipe. With this disastrous loss, the final punishment from the main branches awakened one fell onto Gopher. He would be given a Stellaron. In order words, combined with the shooting star that Mikhail buried early on, that would be 2 Stellarons in Penacony history, represented by the 2 suns on the 2 doors to the Propagation and Harmony. Of course, both doors would lead back to the rise of order. Or in the words of Razalina's dream journal, the star of the day and the star of the night, one for each twin of order, no matter who chooses to live and who chooses to die. From the night-burning scene onward, Gopher started plotting against the family for real and researched into resurrecting the order. By then, the primordial law of Gopher would be split into 4, one for Robin, one for Constance, one as himself to lead fLY to the bait, and one as the Crow to lead Sunday to the rise of order. Albeit, in 3.8, it was revealed that Sunday had cheated and changed the 4th law to his own version, as an atheist who wants to create a kingdom of humans, paralleling Kevin the Icarus who stole the Finality's fire in Honkai 3 and Phanon the Icarus who stole the core flames in Amphoreus. An Icarus, but also at the same time, a Prometheus who stole the fire of gods for humanity.
秩序的道路，我将如您所愿，行至尽头。但您的律令，我已不能认同。若我成为了天空中唯一的星，即便从不属于任何人，也绝无残忍可言。众星残忍，只因他们从未将热力分与万众，只为自身熊熊燃烧。天无2日，如有必要，我会出手将太阳击落，又岂会容许众星于白昼之中放光？乐园终将造就，不在子夜，而在正午。我将飞上高空，变作天上的太阳，万众在我的光芒中热烈生长，而一切罪恶将无所遁形。
Of course, if fLY had not come, Gopher would have chosen to explode the Stellaron to show people the truth of harmony instead. And that was precisely why Elio wanted fLY to come to Penacony. With her participation, the Stellarons were used to resurrect the Aeons instead, one for propagation, and presumably another one for the Order, which is also verified in Sunday's trailer and Fight with 1 week. With the power of Aina, Sunday set up 3 dream layers on Penacony as a miniature eternal recurrence, much like how Phanon did the same in Amphoreus. Well, technically, there are way more dreams than 3, but Hoyo cheated and grouped them together into 3 groups. Aina's dream is the one at the center. The primordial dreamscape is the second layer that includes Dream Flux and Razalina's obsession bubble, which later became a nest for the swarm, and the last one is the 12 hours, which had long bled into reality. thus explaining why the origami bird and Misha could be seen in the real hotel back in 2.0, even before Sunday started his plan. Overall, the structure of the 3 dream layers is based on the real-life depiction of Triumph of Eternity, which became the inspiration for the World card, and that card is the card of the Finality, as the Trailblaze meets itself at the end of the journey. Ergo, what Sunday wanted to create was fundamentally another version of the Trailblaze. I have explained this in more detail in the Terminus video, so you can check that out for more details. In the original timeline, after Cyrene from Option B reset the universe, because of how the Remembrance works, we were booted back to the last save point instead of the very beginning of the story, and this last save point is Acheron's dream, the starting point of every journey. Hence, we were crying for the loss of bonds, of multiple people, including both fLY and the friends we made on Amphoreus. Because of this, Black Swan's light cone, which was actually given to us way back in Timeline B, managed to record Acheron's dream as well, even though it was chronologically given to us directly in 2.1, not 2.0. And yes, it's another case of the Genshin twins duplicating key, and this probably tipped Black Swan off way back then, even if she chose to hide the eternal recurrence from us. Even though we did not remember it back then, we started off with some remnants of the previous cycle's Penacony, as you can see in this series of flashing frames. These images appeared both during the warp in 2.0 and the fake warp in 2.2, mirroring Hanu's and Mikhail's ability to see the future in dreams. Well, that's because the future already happened. We are in the past of Terminus, and reality is actually a bigger version of Sunday's dream, albeit in the brain of Terminus rather than Sunday himself. Of course, Acheron is actually aware of this too, just that she doesn't remember it for real, just having some gut feelings that the eternal recurrence already happened. Hence, why she kept going into different rooms, and why she commented that she has heard the answers from various versions of us before. Another person who remembers some parts of the previous eternal recurrence is Sparkle, who claims that she wants too many things to fall into the dream. Considering that she did fall asleep when Sunday's order power activated, Sparkle was most likely talking about the eternal recurrence itself. Plus, she has access to Silver Wolf's script, so even if she isn't an awakened one, she does know a bit about the eternal recurrence. On an aside, while I did guess that Black Swan killed Robin back in 2.0, 6 months ago, I was rewatching Sparkle's trailer and realized that Sparkle was the one who killed Robin. Even though the scenario itself is patently false, that trailer shows us that the death of Robin was planned way back then by the writers, and that part is also not a retcon, even if it was definitely not a fair murder mystery with Nox's Decalogue. In my personal opinion, the only thing that was actually retcon is fLY's death, because Constance literally did not even appear on Penacony by then to be on the suspect list. In fact, every trick that Constance did, Sparkle could have accomplished the same with her access to Silver Wolf's script and her shape-shifting ability, so I personally think that Sparkle was supposed to also be the killer of fLY, but the development of the new not actually Japan region probably took Sparkle to a different direction, and they pivoted to Constance for the slot. Anyway, in addition to Acheron and Sparkle, there is actually one more person who is possibly aware of the eternal recurrence, and that is Aventurine. In 2.1, during the hallucination induced by Sunday, the hallucination Aventurine claimed that he was once invited to the masked fool, and we are to take it that Aventurine rejected them. But then again, that was actually an order-influenced Aventurine, so actually we don't really know if he actually rejected the fools after joining the IPC or not.
自大的人，我已经看穿了你的伎俩。
哦，你倒是说说看。
驾驶风帆穿越风暴的时候，醉鬼总会祈求命运的仁慈。
所以呢？
都死了。命运最喜欢看他们触礁，愚人就该有愚人的下场。
话里有话，教授，我可没那么有学问。
你根本不是好运，是你不当醉鬼，时刻清醒。
哼，那就赌一把好了。走，今天正适合多喝几杯。等我真醉了，你就知道自己错得离谱。但我也不在乎结果如何，在这世上，还有什么比可能性更宝贵？
With all the analogies of the eternal recurrence as a drunken dream, we can assume that Aventurine is also partially aware of the dream like Sparkle is, albeit he could be either a fool or a morning actor, one of the two, assuming that Ratio's claim is correct. It just so happens that in the Ship of Fools occurrence, one of Ahas's masks is described as a ridiculous gold mask, wanted across the universe for auctioning off 12% of Tarl's gravity and 51% of its strong nuclear force, and Aventurine's modus operandi to ruin Penacony economic system in 2.1 is pretty much the same, also a pump and dump scheme through the auction house. Well, that's just a speculation for now, but he is on my suspicious list, and I look forward to seeing if he will play a role in the Elation region. But what is more certain is that he definitely has some connections to Aina, seeing as his eyes are literally the same as that of Aina. In 3.8, this connection is strengthened when he claimed to have witnessed the War of the Gods, which is the exact era when Aina sacrificed themselves to stop Tazi, aligning to the timeline of his clan's decline. After all, if they worshipped a dead god of order, then in the vacuum created by Aina's death, a second order would arrive, under the hammer of Clippeth, in a perfect parallel to Penacony, the land he was trying to take over in the name of the force that destroyed his own homeland. Overall, with the new lore dropped in 3.8, we have many more details about the Swarm disaster now. For a start, it is now very much confirmed that the Beyond the Sky Choir, Aina's followers, started the Tang Curse in the first place as a parallel to Sunday and Robin's roles in Gopher's plan. Originally, much like the history of Penacony, the Beyond the Sky Choir was jailed by the IPC for an unknown reason, which prompted them to attempt the sacrificial ritual between the twins. One prince was supposed to fall into the sea as a sacrifice for the Tang, while the surviving prince was supposed to become the conductor for the Tang Curse. In Penacony, this became Robin being the original chordmaster, while Sunday was supposed to be part of the dream. You can also see this plot applied to Phanon and Us, as well as Cyrene and Us, and Terminus and Us and Amphoreus. One is supposed to stay in the past, and one will move forward into the future. However, much like the switcheroo between Robin and Sunday, the Beyond the Sky Choir twins switched places, and we actually don't know who did get sacrificed in the end. Regardless, the end result is the same. The choir was melted into a single orange soup of collective consciousness, also called Tang by the Evangelion fandom. It is this choir Tang that later became the bug metamorphosis epidemic, as the bugs had multicolored blood, exactly like the choir Tang. The entire thing is actually a reference to the plagues of Egypt in the Exodus, with the IPC being Egypt cursed with the Nile water turning into blood, which is actually orange juice here. No, literally, the bug blood is supposed to smell of orange. In 3.8, Gopher provided additional details for the choir's motivation. They did it to purposely create a crisis in the universe, which would prompt people to pray to Aina, strengthening the Order's hold in the cosmos. The end goal was supposed to make Order the dominant path in the universe, kicking out the Preservation, and by extension, Terminus, who is the actual dominant path of the universe in the eternal recurrence. Actually, if Terminus is the true target of the choir all along, that might explain why fLY and Propagation Path Striders have entropy loss syndrome. In physics, the flow of entropy is chosen to be the yardstick for the arrow of time. Time flows forward when entropy increases until it reaches maximum and the universe dies to the heat death. In Star Rail, this flow of entropy is the imaginary river, and the heat death is just Nanook. Conversely, entropy loss syndrome means someone stops moving in time, stuck at that moment of perfect happiness forever. Back in the Equilibrium video, I once said that the Order and the Destruction control opposite flows of entropy, representing the two opposite arrows of time, so a propagation that arose out of the same Tang power as the Order would have certain similarities over the arrow of time and entropy with the Order as well. And an imperfect propagation path strider would naturally have the entropy loss syndrome in opposition to the destruction. For a more detailed explanation of the physics, you can check out the Equilibrium video. That said, while the choir was responsible for the metamorphosis epidemic in the first place, it was the prophecy of the Enigmata and the participation of the ankle guy, who should be the surviving choir twin, that turned the epidemic into a pandemic. Under the prophecy of the Enigmata that pretended to be the prophecy of the Finality, the ankle guy was led into the Lepismat system, where he would clash with the bounty hunters and massacred all the bugs but one. The lone surviving bug rose to become Tazi out of love, or in the wording of the simulated universe, as a cosmic sacrifice for love, not unlike Sunday's actual plan as revealed in 3.8, all under the watchful eye of Aina. Unfortunately for the choir, Aina did not like that their expansion was done on false steps. Like Sir Rydra, the simulation of order, and Sunday's plot in Penacony, Aina started to plan their own death so that humans would escape the fate of being controlled by the gods, a bigger version of the flame chase, if you will. The true plan of the Order as a self-sacrifice for the sake of humanity has actually been hinted at long ago, way back in 2.1 with Acheron, and Welt's conversation about Kevin as Icarus, in 2.2 with Sunday, in 2.3 with the Aina Bible dropped by Sunday, and in 3.5 with Sir Rydra. Basically, they tried really hard to hammer it into the players' heads that Aina has always been a good Aeon and an ally of humanity, despite their domineering path, and what we heard of Aina from the narrative of the family is a completely biased one. In a parallel to Sir Rydra trading her own death to overturn a law, Aina made a mysterious deal with Clippeth, a deal that was implied to have involved Ouroboros, the enemy that Clippeth was building the Echidna Wall for. We don't really know what really happened in between, but the end result is that Tazi was tanged by Clippeth, but Tazi was not part of Xipe. However, Aina became a component of Xipe alongside two other Ians. Judging from the mysteriously missing Ouroboros and how Aha made a joke about Aina making Xipe looking more beautiful, the other two faces are probably Ouroboros and Adryla, which should be the shard of fLY that appeared as a lamplight of Ouroboros earlier in the Swarm disaster. For more information on the theory about the connection between Adryla, Ouroboros, and fLY, you can check out the Terminus video for more details. And, well, that would certainly explain why the magazine in Robin's Myriad declared her to be a goddess of beauty. I personally think that would be a nice brick joke. Fundamentally, Aina and Xipe pretty much form their own version of the Beyond the Sky choir twins. One bird must fall and stay in the past, while the other must fly forward into the future. Whichever Aeon is active in the timeline depends on the outcome of the current universe flame chase, not unlike the fLY slot for the pure children. Whatever is the case, there are two final problems with this narrative. Why Keralim claimed that Xipe would arise in the future, not the past, and why the bugs are still active in the universe. As of right now, we don't have enough information to solve either of these questions for sure, but we can make some postulations. With the confirmation of the eternal recurrence, we can assume that Xipe would arise in the future because Xipe's rise happened at the tail end of the universe, and they were allowed access into the past through the Stellaron network. With Aina's control over the flow of entropy, it's not unreasonable to assume that Xipe has some control over the backward arrow of time as well. Ergo, after Aina was tanged by Clippeth during Swarm, a portion of their remnants was sent into the future, which would form part of Xipe, which would send back the Stellaron and go back in time to defeat Tazi and Swarm. Of course, the implication of this is that as of the current time frame, Xipe has not been formed yet, and they will be formed out of remnants of order, as in, between Robin and Sunday, one of them should ascend as the current Xipe in the future, not unlike Cyrene's fate as fLY in Option B and our fate as Terminus in the future past. Well, it's either that or the entire Swarm event itself will happen in a possible future, not the past. Personally, I think either answer is possible at this point. For the second question, with the reveal in 3.8, we can make a guess that Tazi did not actually die for real. Their path is still active, and everyone in the propagation path is just stuck with a version of entropy loss syndrome, probably inflicted on them by the Aina part in Xipe in the first place. As a result of this, the bugs are all short-lived like fireflies to flame, and no new Tazi could break through the chrysalis and ascend. Of course, with our Jenny's story, we have more clues as to the role of the beauty in this as well. According to our Jenny, the Knights of Beauty have to go through a trial of reflection. If you fail the trial, then the Knights would turn back into beasts. In other words, Adryla could cover up the beasts and turn them into beauty, and probably vice versa as well. Our Jenny's quest, which took inspiration from Don Quixote's delusion turning windmills into monsters, heavily implies that some of the beasts turned into beauty are actually bugs. In his character story 4, Argeni further revealed that he could hear the prophecy of finality during his trial, and that one day, if he fails the trial, he would also turn into an omen of evil as well. In other words, he could turn back into a beast. A bug beast, to be more precise. Altogether, it seems that the beauty, as a part of the fLY cluster of paths, plays an active role in preventing a possible answer for the fourth finality from arising. And for the beauty, the possibility they're holding back is the propagation, which would incidentally align with the reference to Kafka's metamorphosis I mentioned in the Terminus video as well. So in short, Tazi isn't dead for real because they're actually just frozen in time by entropy loss syndrome, held back by Xipe, who probably used both Aina and Idrila's paths to do so. The moment Xipe splits back into 3, Tazi would wake up again, replacing the Remembrance from option B as the fourth finality. Although, that's probably a bad end that would get reset and not the actual finale of the game, which we already have confirmation to be about the Trailblaze reunion with the finality at the end of the journey, as we face ourselves again to surpass the finality. After all, it is the rule of the equilibrium for halves to reunite again, just as it was the same for our ankle guy back in Swarm. As the Nihility consumed all the dead souls of bugs and humans, the Acheron River broke its bank, inflicting the Nihility effect on every living being in the Lepismat system. Synthurstos broke out of the underworld, not knowing that they had already died and were just repeating what they did in life. For our ankle guy, his memories were stolen by Masked Fool, who was once a worm. Probably due to a time shenanigan like Phanon and Reaver, he was split into 2, with one half traveling in the gondola and one half wandering the dead world as a Synthurstu. But memories once stolen must be returned. On the gondola, the Masked Fool, who was a worm, pretended to be a mourning actor, returning the stolen memory bubble back to the nameless half of the ankle guy. In the current timeline, we can see a parallel of this in Amphoreus in 3.3, when Zagreus returned the Kephael core flame to Phanon, and in 3.8 as well, when Constance returned the stolen memories back to us. Which is why I am pretty certain that Constance's role was supposed to be Sparkle in the original draft, and this role swap is the only actual retcon in 3.8. As the two halves reunited, a creation-annihilation reaction occurred, and both halves of the ankle guy disappeared from the record, under the watchful eyes of the equilibrium. Of course, it's heavily implied that this guy later was reborn as Nanook, so it's pretty easy to see that he and his other half also follow the same plot as the Beyond the Sky choir twins. One must stay back in the past, and one will move forward into the future.
若女士，在你看来，羊为什么要飞上天空？
怎么突然问起这个？
第一次听到的时候，我也这么想。离开匹诺康尼前，哥哥就是这么问我的。我总是忍不住要思考。
不知道，我该飞时就飞，不想飞了就下来，没有为什么。
Naturally, this is the same plot around Sunday and Robin, as is the same plot between us and Cyrene, and us and fLY as well. Fundamentally, it's Hoyo's attempt to combine physics with Faust, and with the bird metaphor. As I have stated in 2.6, structurally, Penacony is Faust Part 1, and Amphoreus is Faust Part 2. In Faust Part 1, Faust made a deal with Mephistopheles to give his soul away if he ever has a moment of perfect happiness, which is referenced for Robin in 2.0 and quoted directly by Cyrene before 3.7 started. When Gretchen was jailed for drowning their child, Faust begged for Mephistopheles to save her from execution, but Gretchen rejected this and opted to die so that she could return to God instead. Sunday is the Faust who wanted to make an eternally happy dream and freeze time forever, yet he is also the Gretchen who killed the embryo of philosophy, imprisoned by the family for his sin. Similarly, while Robin was the imprisoned Gretchen at the start, by 2.3, she had taken on the role of Faust, making a deal with her own Mephistopheles, Jade, so that they could rebuild their promised paradise once more. Of course, in Star Rail, Sunday agreed to take on the deal to free himself, unlike the Gretchen of the original story. Although, you can argue that him going beyond the sky to the Astral Express is pretty analogous to Gretchen returning to heaven. Naturally, the subplot here is the story of us and fLY. Unbeknownst to us, fLY is the Gretchen left back in jail because our memories were deleted by Constance in 2.2 and modified by Sparkle in 2.3. We thought we had freed Gretchen, but actually she just fell into a coma while we returned to Amphoreus once more. When Faust Part 2 started, Faust fell asleep in a meadow and woke up among elves in classical Greek, with the elves reinterpreted as meme. Much like Alicia from Honkai 3, Cyrene took on the role of Helen of Troy, representing the ideal beauty of romanticism. In the previous Eternal Recurrence, in which she chose option B, Cyrene turned into Faust and wished to preserve a moment of perfect happiness, as in, she chose to become fLY and big chill the universe, much like the choice of the her share of corruption, her other inspiration, in Elysium Everlasting. However, in our timeline in option C, this Cyrene has learned to understand what love is. To love the universe is to let them have their own answers, their own ego. Everyone will have their own drive, and not even love is the final answer for everyone. By making the choice of option C, Cyrene let that moment of perfect happiness fade away, and she herself, as the ideal beauty of Helen, also fades away, allowing Faust to reunite with Gretchen in heaven. So, of course, it is only when Cyrene has chosen option C that we could return to Penacony once more through our memories. In the role of Mephistopheles, Constance led us back to the unfinished story in Faust Part 1, back to memories of Gretchen through mental time travel, not unlike how we were only in Amphoreus mentally and not physically. However, unlike Goethe Faust, in which Gretchen managed to rescue Faust from the allure of Mephistopheles, in 3.8, as the Faust of the story, we have accepted the deal with the devil and wished for a moment of perfect happiness with fLY, rewriting the meaning of the ending with the power of finality. Effectively, when we used our power right then and there, we pressed the reset button of the universe once more to create a new version of the past, another version that resembles our fake memories in 2.3, but still leads to the same ending in Amphoreus in option C. Once we woke up from the dream, we have traveled once more to the present, with a new picture to prove the existence of the changed timeline. In other words, the chronology of the timeline so far is Amphoreus option B with Cyrene, then we got booted back to Penacony from 2.0 to 2.2, but our memories were modified from 2.2 onward by the combined effort of Constance and Sparkle. Then, we pranced off to Amphoreus again until the Iron Tomb boss fight. During the Iron Tomb boss fight, the universe was destroyed once more, so Cyrene did a soft reset again, this time only kicking us back to before Iron Tomb's victory instead of way back to Penacony. Once we have defeated Iron Tomb, Cyrene chose option C and went back in time, allowing the fourth finality slot to be open. It was then that Constance showed up again and returned us the memories of the true events from 2.0 to 2.2. In 3.8, when we called for Terminus, we have used the finality power to make a new timeline for the past, connecting that new timeline to the present. Thus, with the new timeline added, a new branch of the future was opened, causing fLY to wake up in the present. In principle, it is pretty much the definition of light cone in physics. Historically, time is imagined as a train track stretched into infinity in Newtonian physics, which is why we are traveling on a train in the game. However, if time extends to eternity, then the universe should have already reached thermal equilibrium, and everyone would have become a soup in the heat death at the present already. Kant called this the antimony of pure reason, which was referenced by Ligas skill way back in 3.5. With the development of Einstein's theory of relativity, this logical contradiction is basically solved. Based on the theory of relativity, in the Minkowski diagram of the light cone, all the past events that could cause the present and all the future events that could result from the present are represented by the two halves of the light cones. By looking back into the past light cone, we can determine that the universe has a beginning, a Big Bang. Of course, in the star rail setting, the future has already happened, and we are in the past of Terminus, so every change we make is based on the uncertainty principle and Feynman's multiple histories. The short version of it is that we can treat the universe as a bigger version of Schrödinger's cat box, a big wave function. Since we are in the past of Terminus and have not observed the end yet, the cat can be alive or dead in different possibilities of history. In Amphoreus, the cat box is Amphoreus itself, and the cat is Iron Tomb and Cyrene. In 3.8, the cat box is the universe, and the cat is fLY. By using the power of finality, we have picked one ending of the box over the other, erasing the old past and creating a new past, both of which would still lead to the same outcome in the present. I have explained this in more detail across multiple videos in the past, so if you want to read more on this, or you can check out Hawking's universe in a nutshell, a brief history of time, and the grand design. On Hoyo's part, they seem to base a lot of their world building across multiple games on Hawking's analogies from these books, and they have even made direct reference to the universe in a nutshell twice in Star Rail, first with the achievement category and second with Lygus in 3.5. The grand design, along with the movie Inception, is actually where Hoyo got the idea that the universe is a dream of Terminus as the Penrose staircase as well. The future has already been determined by a complete set of laws, and we are in the past, following the trajectories predetermined by said set of laws. This law is called the M theory that physicists and mathematicians have chased after for decades, and the same equation that represents the equilibrium in Honkai's Star Rail setting. Under this set of laws, free will does not actually exist. Everything happens because it already happened, and people make choices because the choices that they make are predetermined as well, as demonstrated by the time traveler paradox discussed in 3.7 and 3.8. To paraphrase the discussion in a brief history of time, in the time traveler paradox, we have a time traveler who went back in time to purposely change the past, and because of the change, the future turns into one where time travel is no longer possible, creating a break in the casualty chain. To address this issue, the consistent history approach argues that such cases of time traveling would not be able to change recorded history. Because the universe operates under the rules of M theory, every choice the time traveler makes would not be able to change recorded history, and they would not be able to negate their own existences. Because history is consistent, the best the time traveler could do is to make a stable time loop, and every action they make would lead to the predetermined ending in the future. This is the time travel plot for Cyrene in 3.7. Another way to address the time traveler paradox is the alternate history approach, based on Feynman's multiple histories. Essentially, in this version of the universe, even though the universal M theory still exists, it allows for multiple histories to exist, and every choice the time traveler makes will create a new version of history, like the many possible states of the cat in the closed box. However, the caveat is that the end point is still predetermined, and no matter which route the time traveler takes, they will always arrive at the same end point. Hence, in 3.8, we could not actually save the fLY of 2.2 from her coma. We could only give her a bouquet of memories before she actually fell into that coma, just as we could not save Nias by traveling back in time in 3.1. The only thing we did change is the meaning of the ending, when we finally face ourselves again after we have completed the hero's journey. This is the grand design, where the humans are flawed divinity, and the divine are but flawless humans. In a way, you can read the whole story from Penacony to Amphoreus as an anti-Faust story using the Faust narrative to deliver its message. If Faust relies on Gretchen as the eternal feminine in heaven to save him from the demon of his own scientific nihilism, then we, as the heroes of the Trailblaze journey, could only rely on ourselves as humans to fly toward the ending. Heaven is a place on earth, and the gods we rely on have always been ourselves. We are the past of the hero Krishna, traversing the path of love and heroes. In the future, our complete selves would manifest their thousand-armed form, or in this case, their thousand cats form, and proclaim, "Now I am become Finality, lifting the wheels of time, destroyers of worlds," and at the end of it all, we will transcend our own finality by giving the ending a new meaning. There must be a complete set of laws that, given the state of the universe at a specific time, would specify how the universe would develop from that time forward. These laws should hold everywhere and at all times. Otherwise, they wouldn't be laws. There could be no exceptions or miracles. Gods or demons couldn't intervene in the running of the universe.
我是 那道回望世界的注视，多么幸运呀！在这因果的循环中，人们从未仰仗神灵的指引，那一次次执笔书写奇迹的，从来都是我们自己呀。